Hi everyone, how's it going? I hope everyone's doing well in the midst of this crazy semester. I know it's so weird and so awkward. So, thank you for taking the time to read my online discussion posts and watch my videos. So, for this critical analysis, I will be investigating the artist Claude Cahun and, in particular, their image, Self Portrait with the Mask, taken in 1928, through Heather Love's perspective on queerness. Quote, born Lucy Schwab in 1894, the French photographer, sculptor, and writer adopted the gender-ambiguous name Claude Cahun in 1917. End quote, MoMA. Cahun is best known for their self-portraits, in which they utilize the camera to explore a variety of personas, both male and female. Cahun's artistic work is most often associated with the Surrealist movement in France, their careers spanning from the early 1910s to the later to middle portion of the 1950s. Cahun is tied to this artistic movement, the Surrealist movement, due to their close personal ties with many of the lead figures such as Andre Breton, and their unusual, almost dreamlike approach in investigating the social roles and relationships that exist within our human experience. Cahun's artistic practice and personal philosophy strove to question the visual, symbolic, social roles and procedures that shape a gendered experience in the world. Cahun continually questioned, critiqued, and stretched the ideas of static gender and sexual identity constructions, and this is most reflected and predominantly seen in their photographic self-portraiture. Cahun created a large and extensive portfolio of self-portraiture throughout their lifetime, where they often assumed the role of the androgynous, blending masculine and feminine identities and essences. Cahun refuses to limit themselves into either binary masculine-feminine gender category, and as quoted in their biography, quote, masculine, question mark, feminine, question mark, depends on the situation. Neuter is the only gender that ever suited me, end quote, pulled from the tape. This resistance to limiting and categorizing themselves in the normative gender categories in both lifestyle, career, and artistic practices invites one to apply contemporary thought and questions on both queer and gender and transgender, gender, and feminist theories when investigating and looking at Cahun's photographic work. Claude Cahun's photograph, Self-Portrait with the Mask, taken in 1928, is a complex image of the self. We see Cahun sitting in the foreground of the picture, set against a black curtained background with a mask hanging in the left-hand side of the image. Cahun is dressed in a tank top and pleated bottoms with a beaded, almost pearl-looking necklace upon their neck and a beaded band around their arm. In addition, there is a scarf tied around their head, draping down the shoulder. To me, the scarf and jewelry hint at femininity, with their delicate placing upon the skin and their soft and bold nature as jewelry or as items themselves. Although Cahun's shirt and bottom attires may look femininely styled as by today's standards, to me this relates or makes me think of more to other artists in this time period that were more female, in particular female artists such as Florence Henry, who made a point to question gender and sexuality in their images and in their artworks, and many very often did it by combining both masculine and feminine hairstyles and makeup wear with masculine and feminine clothing. And by Cahun blending both these masculine and feminine aspects in clothing, and in particular, neither of those styles are predominantly thriving or just predominantly shown over the other. And this visually expresses their refusal to tie and categorize themselves within a single gender role. This hybridity of gender styling leads one to see the androgynous nature that Cahun strives to assume, both physically and emotionally. And when I say emotionally, I mean identity. And when I say identity, I mean it also ties to their career views. So Cahun's creative self-depictions of androgyny, in where they blend both their masculine and feminine halves, and their chosen identity to of the neuter, breaks from the traditional binary. Their actions and beliefs parallel Love's theory on queer and transgender studies by defining and expressing themselves against strict identities, and instead attempting an outlook of crossing and denaturalizing gender identity categories. This alignment of ideals naturally invites one to use Love's perspective on queer and transgender theory to deeply analyze Cahun's image, to gain insight into Cahun's personal, social, and communal social life. And when I say personal social life, I think we all kind of know what that means. It's them themselves personally. And when I say communal social, I'm talking more about their larger perspectives, their political beliefs, and their thought processes and how they interact with the world. So I believe at its best, Love's analysis in queer invites one to think of the potentiality of understanding and using queer and trans as theoretical terms in looking at art, in which they invite and encourage one to question, resist, and denaturalize identity and gender categories. By carefully blending both masculine and feminine clothing attire on their body within a photograph, Cahun is able to enact, document, and place in history their androgynous self, creating a permanent place beyond their death. This image is filled with performative elements. Cahun purposefully dressing androgynously, the curtain background, the mask hanging in the corner, the choice of a self-portrait. The self-portrait itself is a performative action, and if you have more questions about the self-portrait itself being a performative action, you should look into the amazing writer Amelia Jones. And if you need some titles, I have some for you, because I have been starting to read more and more about her. So the self-portrait itself is a performative action. The artist purposefully chooses each individual element within the image. Whether it happens to be a more sporadic image or a sporadic self-portrait, the artist is still choosing each element within that image. They might stumble upon a background or a scenario or a scenery that they enjoy, but there are certain elements that they lock into, see, and decide that they are perfect for the image, and therefore they are still active choices that they are making to create the image. Or whether it is a fully constructed or planned image. So while looking at Cahun's image, I was struck with a series of questions that I am hoping to work through. I'm trying to work through Cahun's images more because I want to be able to use their images in a photography analysis paper later on this semester. And I suppose I will end this discussion with some of my questions. So when I look at Cahun's images, these are what I think of. Is Cahun asking us to question their gender personally, as in like them themselves Cahun's in their gender and what they're portraying, or are they asking us to question gender and gender identities more at large, as in a societal sphere? Question 1. 2. Is Cahun using their body as the vessel and the camera as a storative stage? And this is growing out of my thoughts in background, right? Cahun is having a curtain background behind them. They're having a mask that is sad looking with a tear on it. And to me, and they're wearing a more, I would assume, costumey apparel versus something someone would wear in their everyday lifetime environment. But then again, what do I know? I do not know Claude Cahun. So coming out of that, Are they using their body as the vessel and the camera as a sort of stage? Is our vision, perceptions, constructs, and understanding of gender almost theatrical in a sense? And sadly, is it a drama? I mean, is Khan asking us if it's a drama? There's a mask that looks so sad, the tear. And when we think about gender and identity, we're continually having to put out these offers of change, these hopes of change, these theories of change, how we can make change effective. And yet we are still hurt by so many of those around us, and still there's so much progress to be made. Another question I have. And another question I have that I was thinking as I was more writing this analysis and as I was writing further work on Cahun is, what would be the proper terminology for Claude Cahun? And I guess where I'm thinking Cahun themselves is they were born biologically female in the later 1800s. They chose this gender androgynous name because A, they chose to be androgynous, and B, because it was at their point in life a bit easier for a male to have recognition for their writing and their artistic movements or artistic practices. So I guess where my complexity and questions is yes, what is the proper terminology? We know that Khan was born female. We know that in the writings about Khan they were referred to as female. Gender categories were incredibly strict. You were male or you were female, right? As compared to today. But I know of them, and as through looking through their work as an artist and as a writer, that they chose to be androgynous, that they chose to use a pseudonym. So what is the proper terminology to talk about? Are they, right? The proper pronoun. Personally, I'm torn because I feel like their goal and their hope and desire was to break away from this he, she, gender, male, female category, and they found it very limiting. But then my obligation to history is to honor history and refer to them and the way that they have been referred to before, although I will say that is not right. That is the final question I had as I was finishing this off, and it's really bothering me. So anyways, thank you for taking the time to listen to me and my awkward presentation and my and I appreciate it, and I hope you all the best, and I'll see you soon.